So, first, who are you?
My name is Anthony Baxter. Most people around here know me as Woody.
Let me be more specific. Not what's your name, who are you? What builds you up?
Man, that's a tough one. I think who I am is what I'm trying to figure out every day.
Okay.
I know who I've been and who I want to be, but I don't know. Who I am is it's a tough one.
Who you were?
Who was I?
Yeah.
Well, I guess depending on what point in my life, my favorite person that I was whenever I was a husband and a father. That was whenever I was capable of doing anything.
Who you wanna be?
Like to be a husband and a father again. That's actually a goal of mine that I'm setting, but I think who I am is stopping that.
Are you addicted to anything?
Yes, I'm addicted to many things. I'm addicted to cigarettes. I'm addicted to methamphetamine. I'm addicted to fentanyl. Addicted to sugar, caffeine.
What happened? Why did you stop being a father?
Yeah, well, I mean, we have to start with my wife to answer that. Whenever my wife was 22 years old, we had just had our first child. He was almost a year old. And she was 4 months pregnant with my daughter. She was diagnosed with leukemia. And real quick, we had to, since we caught it early, we had to go and put her through a treatment. And that meant that my daughter even had to go through a treatment with her. They did a round of chemo. Then they had to do a more aggressive treatments, and so they induced a labor, and my daughter was born premature. They had to keep her at the hospital for about 2 months, but she came out beautiful. And my wife went into remission after that one. I really thought it was over. Like we beat that, you know, because her and I, it seemed like anything that was ever thrown against us, as long as we were together, we were able to overcome. After 4 years, it finally got to her. It was stronger than we thought, and it took her. And I thought I'd lost everything, but so that's whenever I set in doing drugs real hard. I didn't know who I was anymore without her. And that's whenever I really messed up and my kids were taken from me. And I had truly lost everything then. I tried to get them back. They gave me a certain amount of time. I think it was about 18 months, which, you know, I was still a kid myself, basically. I didn't know how to solve any of these problems that were being thrown at me. And for the first couple of months, I wasted them still getting high until it hit me that I was on a time limit. And so I buckled down and started doing what I had to do. I had to go to parent classes, and I had to quit doing drugs, get a job again. And so I did. The issue that hit was whenever she was sick, we had been evicted from 4 different places. And the court was requiring that I have a 2-bedroom or a 3-bedroom house because I had a son and a daughter, and they had to have separate rooms. And I had to have my own room. And that was a little difficult with just me making minimum wage. And anytime I tried to apply for a place, I'd get denied because I had these red flags from being evicted. Nobody wanted to rent to me. And then the 18th month hit, and they stripped me of my parental rights. And about 3 weeks later, somebody adopted both my kids. And that was 5 years ago, and I haven't seen them since.
We know that you would have done something different, obviously.
Oh yeah.
But what I'm trying to ask, do you think it sent you down in a spiral?
Yeah. It's got me to a point where, I have nothing to fight for anymore. I just need the bare minimum to survive. And so...
Are you hoping to see your kids again?
Yeah, definitely.
Do you think you got the strength to overcome whatever stops you from it?
Yeah. I mean, if they were to tell me that, give me any challenge that if I could do something and I'd be able to see my kids, then I wouldn't hesitate.
Had you been clean of drugs besides cigarettes?
Have I been?
Yeah.
Yes.
For how long?
I quit for a whole year one time, about 4 years ago.
What are you using now?
Right now I'm using fentanyl and meth.
How does that affect your mental stability? I don't know much about fentanyl and all that,
Well, I'm on it right now.
You're on it right now?
Yeah. That's why.
You are coherent though.
Yeah.
Most people think that it's...
Yeah, most people fall out.
You got a high tolerance?
Yeah. I've
Build that up.
I've always had a high tolerance to drugs, even the first time that I do them.
What do you think that is?
I'm not sure. I think it might have something to do with my size. Some people told me because my mom was on drugs whenever I was born. And so I was born with stuff in my system. That might have something to do with it, but I'm not sure.
Did you suffer from withdrawals when you were a kid?
Yeah, as a baby I did.
Do you remember that traumatic experience?
I don't remember that, no. My earliest memory is at about 8 months old, when my mom first left me with the babysitter. That's as far back as I remember.
Where have these substances have led you to? Like what type of situations or place led you to? I see that you have a cut there.
Oh, well.
And you have some tattoos.
Yeah. Really, the substances haven't led to any real crazy situations. I happen to just fall into crazy situations randomly with without even knowing it.
Why?
It's a good question. Like the most crazy situation that I had gone through for the first time was after I'd just started a family and just before my wife was diagnosed. I was working as a nurse's assistant, working overnights at a convalescent home. And on my spare time, I was building bicycles with motors on them and selling them just for a little extra cash. And so a lot of people thought that I had a lot of money because every other day they see me on a different motorized bike. And of course, this was before all the electric bikes and everything. And you know, I'm into painting and customizing, working with metal. I had a welder, so I was making them kind of fancy, a lot of chrome. And I guess somebody caught wind that I had money, but I didn't. This was all just stuff that I was making myself. And so they decided to break into my house to rob me. And I was supporting my dad at the time. And so these two guys apparently were waiting outside the apartment complex, and they saw my wife and my dad and my son leave to go grocery shopping and thought the house was empty. And so they broke into the house, and they were in there actually a while before I even knew they were there, because I was asleep. Again, I work nights, so I was sleeping in the back room. And what woke me up is hearing a bunch of rustling going around in the closet. And I thought to myself, I thought my wife was grocery shopping. So I lifted up and saw two men with their backs to me in the closet, and saw a pistol in one of the guys' hands. And so as quietly as I could, I walked past him. I started going down the hallway to see where my family was, and saw that my dad's room was empty. And after I passed my dad's room, one of the guys came running by me. He looked like he couldn't have been more than 17 years old. And that's when I got to the kitchen and living room area, and I had two of those motorized bikes, and they were both gone. My flat screen TV was gone. Xbox and PlayStation and Wii were gone. Everything that was worth money in there were gone. That's whenever I realized that they'd been in there for a while already. At that moment, I hear from behind me, "Where's the money?" And so I turned around, and it kind of made me laugh. I was like, "Wow, dude, you come to like the poorest part of town, to the cheapest apartment complex looking for money." I was like, "I'm barely making ends meet. My money's tied up in rent." And I smoked a little bit of weed back then, and he was like, "Where's the weed at?" And I probably had about 2 or 3 joints worth in the cabinet, put up in the cabinet. And so I told him where it was, told him he was welcome to it. And he seemed aggravated, like he thought he was gonna get more out of it. And so he's pointing the gun at me this whole time. And he's about 5 feet away. This dude, he's about 40 years old, 50 years old. It looked like he weighed maybe 115 pounds soaking wet. And so I'm already thinking to myself, this guy hasn't pulled the trigger, he's probably scared to, or it's not loaded. And you know, I could probably take him pretty easily. And so I think he saw like something in my eye thinking about that, because he aims the gun at me and tells me to sit down. And that hit me like, you know, this is my house. Nobody's gonna tell me to sit down in my own house. And so he said it again, he said, "Sit down." And I started going toward him. And he goes, "You think I'm fucking playing?" And he put the gun down to my leg. And I moved my leg a little bit because I didn't want to get kneecapped. And he pulls the trigger. And I just felt like a little bit of pressure. I thought at first it was a blank. It was the look on his face that told me it wasn't. He looked like he was shocked that he did that. And he took off running. And so I started to run after him. And when I did, my leg clicked like 3 times and I couldn't move. I looked down and there was a hole in my pants. I was like, oh shit. And so I touched the hole and my pants just started soaking in blood. And being a nurse's assistant, I knew a little bit about where like arteries and stuff were, and where the gunshot wound was right next to my femoral artery. And with how much blood I was seeing, I thought maybe he had hit it. And so, you know, that only gives you a few minutes to live unless you stop the bleeding. And so I wobbled back to the back room and took my pants off and took my belt out and tourniquet my leg. Yeah, that was the first crazy situation. But see, it had nothing to do with drugs or anything. It was actually one of my hobbies, being a little flashy, that made somebody think that I had money to come in after me.
Do you think your personality has influence on your good doings and misdoings? You said that you didn't go through a lot of experiences like that because of drugs. Why do you think you went through them?
I think because I'm not too careful of a person. I don't live by fear. You know, I'm willing to go to those places that other people don't want to go to. I'm willing to hang out with those people that everybody else is afraid of. And you know, it's all a learning experience. And some experiences you learn harder.
You got a lot of stories, right?
Yeah.
What happened in your arm?
Yeah, so this was something, that was another crazy, like, there's an indention that it probably goes in about that far, but I mean, honestly, it was a good place to get hit, because
My bad.
I mean, it was almost like where you part your hair is right where he got me. I'll take a drink real quick.
Yeah. You like Mountain Dew?
I like sugar.
Doesn't matter the flavor?
Mountain Dew is probably my favorite. I like room temperature Mountain Dew. Or an ice cold Red Bull. Alright, but yeah, so I was doing the online dating thing, and I'd been talking to this girl for about 2 months, and we finally decided to meet. And so I went and picked her up on my motorcycle and took her over to my grandmother's house, because I didn't have any other place to really take her. And we're in the back tool shed, pretty much, and we got a couch back there. And you know, I figured I was gonna get lucky back there, and then suddenly my little cousin interrupts us, and she has a friend with her. And already I was like, Barbara, what the hell are you doing in here, man? We're busy. And she's like, we're looking for a place to smoke. I'm like, God damn. And I kept looking at this dude, because he wasn't saying anything, and he had like his eyes were darting back and forth real fast, and he just like had I don't know, how, like a primitive or animalistic look is the only way I could say it. Now thinking back, it looked like he was about to do something, but my mind was completely focused on this girl, and I wasn't even thinking twice about it. But I had a pair of katana swords that I had just gotten from a friend of mine, and I brought them over there before I started the date to sharpen them, and I'd sharpened one and sharpened it to like a razor point, and hadn't got to the bigger one yet. And my cousin saw them, and she picked one of them up, and she goes, wow, these are cool. And I told her, yeah, that's, you know, I just got those. And I turned back to talk to the girl I was talking to, and I heard some like tools falling and sound like a scuffle going on behind me. And so I turn around, and that's when that dude that she was with brings the large katana straight down onto my head. Bam! Gets me right there. About a 10-inch gash all the way to the skull. And I'll give you some pictures to show with that. But you know, the first thing I thought was, whoa, dude did not just hit me with my own sword. And I didn't have much time to think, where he had already doubled it back and he was swinging again. And so I put my arm up and blocked it there. And now I'm thinking, damn, this dude's trying to kill me. And I stood up, and he'd already doubled back and he's swinging again, and I caught it in my left hand. I'm like, dude, what the fuck are you doing? And he pulls it out of my hand. And a real katana is, you know, sharp on one side, and then on the other side, the last 2 inches of the tip are also sharpened. So it's like a dagger in the tip. And I found out from the doctor later sewing me up that the reason they make double-edged daggers is to pierce the human skull. Like a regular knife can't pierce the skull, it has to be a dagger. And so that is why it was double-edged. But when he pulled out of my hand, it sliced my thumb here. I have no feeling in my thumb here anymore. And it got my 2 fingers here and here. Those were probably the more painful, even though they weren't the worst cuts. There's, you know, you got a lot of sensitivity and nerve endings in your hands. At that moment though, he, like the other guy, turned around and ran away, but he also had my sword in his hand still. And so the first thing I thought of is, hey, my cousin Jeremiah, he's here. You know, he just got out of prison about a year ago, and a couple of days ago he showed me a gun that he'd got. And so I step out there and I'm yelling for Jeremiah to bring his gun, and the guy's running to his truck. By about my 3rd step, and my adrenaline is just pumped now, and I'm angry, and I feel my head like fillet open, and I couldn't see anything past the waterfall of blood in front of me. And so then I thought about how many pints of blood we have in the body and how much I'd already lost. And so I stopped and started breathing slower, trying to relax, trying to forget about anything that would make my heart go faster. And slowly, I was speaking real soft and slow. I was telling my cousin, go get me a towel and call 911. I need an ambulance or I'm gonna bleed out. And she doesn't know what to do. I think she's half retarded. Finally, I got through to her, and she starts heading to the house to go get a washcloth for me to cover my head. In that moment, I realized that this whole time all this was going on, there was screaming going on. I hadn't really noticed until everything was starting to calm down. And so I looked in the direction of the screaming, and that girl that I'd been talking to, she had worn a white t-shirt and like a white skirt, and she was covered in blood. She had blood all over her face, all over her shirt. And she's sitting there screaming like nonstop. And so I calmed her down. She was a little freaked out. I never saw her again after that. I talked to her a couple times, and she had gotten some PTSD from the whole situation. Yeah. Luckily though, my cousin had first picked up the larger sword instead of the small one, which is good because I'd sharpened that small one so sharp that wherever he hit, it wouldn't have stopped it. Whenever he hit me in the head, it would have just taken that side of my head off. When he hit me in the arm, it would have severed my arm. I mean, the thing was so sharp whenever I was done. But he grabbed the dull one, so this was all done with the dull blade.
Were you using any kind of substance back there? Non-regular?
Yeah. At that time, I was doing heroin and meth.
Whether you got into heroin or meth? If there are different reasons, you can tell them.
Yeah, well, the heroin kind of started with pills first. I whenever I was a kid, I used to ride dirt bikes a lot, and I'd race them and crash. And one time I broke my leg, and I broke a collarbone. I dislocated both of my arms well over 100 times each. And whenever I'd get hurt, of course they'd prescribe like Oxycontin or Percocet or Dilaudid, Vicodin, Norco, whatever. They'd give you some sort of opiate to kill the pain. And like I said earlier, no matter what I take, my tolerance is like automatically built up. And so they say take 2 pills every 4 to 6 hours, and I'd take those 2 pills and not feel any pain relief. And so I'd take 2 more pills, and then the pain wasn't going away, but my mind didn't care anymore. It's just like I was still relaxed and cool. And
it didn't just treat the pain, it treated the anxiety too.
Say again?
It didn't just treat the pain, it treated the anxiety too.
Yeah, it didn't really treat the pain that much. It was more like the anxiety was the painful part.
Did you receive, when you were a kid, mental health treatment? Did you went to a psychologist, psychiatrist, receive medication?
No, at one point they thought that I had some sort of mental disorder. One teacher had mentioned that I had sociopathic tendencies, and so they sent me to see a psychiatrist, and it proved to be false. Like the teacher was way off. I didn't respond like all the other kids emotionally. I've always been more like, I don't know if you know anything about the chakra, like the different chakras that we have, but low energy, low vibrational energy, to me is tiring. It takes a lot to be angry or to hate somebody or hold a grudge. The only one that I probably, like low energy chakra that I use is sadness, I'd say. And I try not to do that one. That one's a little harder to overcome. But, what was your question again? The psychiatrist.
Yeah, did you receive mental health treatment when you were a kid? You're mentioning that, what I'm saying, that your accidents as a kid and the prescriptions that they give you send you down into...
Yeah, whenever they give me the medication for pain, I started, abusing them. Like, they give me a script for 60 pills, and it's supposed to last me a month, and I'd be out in less than a week, and so at one point, the doctor told me, I think when I was about 15, is either, I think it was my kidneys or, I think it was my kidneys. He's saying that me abusing the pills was damaging my kidney. And I asked him how, what do I do? And he told me, you got to stop taking the pills. And at that point, it wasn't really an option. Like, I stopped taking the pills, and I feel like my body was dying basically without them. And so I actually went home and started doing some research, because it wasn't the opiates, the drug that I was using it for. It wasn't that was killing my kidneys. It was the amount of Tylenol that was in it. And so
Percocet 325.5.
Yeah. So what it is 5 milligrams of hydrocodone and 325 milligrams of Tylenol. And so that's a lot of Tylenol. You're only allotted around 2,000 milligrams of Tylenol a day. And so I was taking, at my worst time, I was taking upward about 45 Norcotins a day. And so 45 times 325, that's a lot of Tylenol. And so first thing I thought is, like, how can I chemically separate this Tylenol from the hydrocodone, you know? And there's ways, but it was really expensive, and the pills were already expensive, so that wasn't an option. But I kept reading about the drugs, and then it got to the certain physics of the drugs and how they respond to chemicals, which is what I was looking for. But the one that caught my attention was water. That hydrocodone is a heavier chemical, and whenever it's broken down in water, it turns to a sediment and sinks to the bottom, where Tylenol is more buoyant and will float to the top.
So you separate them.
And so I take my whole script and dump it into a cup of water, put ice in it, just a few drops, and then put it in the refrigerator for about 15 minutes. Take it out, and they're all soggy at the bottom, and I'd stir them up with a spoon to where there wasn't any pills left, and then put it back in for another 15 minutes, come back, and there's a thick cloud of white at the top, and then a small little pile of white at the bottom. And so I just dumped the Tylenol out, and then I'd dry out the hydrocodone, and I had a pure form of hydrocodone in a powder. The doctor was proud of me, though, and whenever I went back to see him the next time, he said he thought I'd quit doing the pills. He said that everything was looking better.
You seem to be a very creative person.
Yeah, there's always another route you can take. Whenever people say this is the way, this is the only way, that just means that they're not very open-minded. That way might have worked for them, and it might have been the best way, but there's always another way that could work better for you. You know, there's ways around it.
Do you think you have a big ego?
No. I mean, I guess I have an ego kind of like how you have hunger. There's certain times I have more of an ego than other times. You know, like...
What are your hobbies?
Oh, shit. It'd be easier to say what my hobbies weren't my hobbies. So yeah, I'm an artist. I've been drawing since I was in the 2nd grade. I remember the first 3D drawing that I was taught how to do was a top hat, like what Abraham Lincoln would wear. And they showed me how to draw the shape of the hat, and then the brim that goes right above the eyes. You know, I kept drawing a circle, and it just didn't look real. And so my teacher showed me that you don't draw a circle, you start like halfway up the hat or something and bring it down. I mean, I'd have to draw it to show you what I mean, but to me, in my mind, it made it look like it was a real hat. And so it was mind-blowing to me. And so I started applying that to all the stuff I was drawing. I started drawing squares that looked like cubes, and it blew up from there. And then the first time that I knew that my art was better than most of the kids my age was